Oh my gosh. I just want to put, how do I change, give me 1 second. I'm just gonna put my, how do I do my here, my ears. There we go. Can you hear me now?
We are fully wearing our power pink right now.
That is awesome.
So awesome. I love it. Well, first of all, congratulations on the actor award. That's so exciting.
Thank you. It was yeah, it was pretty let me just do this so I don't touch it. Yeah, it's weird to do anything right now, you know, to have those moments of celebration or to feel connected to community, period. Yeah. So those are always little, yeah, it was nice to feel connected for a moment.
I know. I was so excited for you.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. Yeah. How have you been? Before we start all of this, how have you been?
Yeah. We've been good. We're in Albuquerque, New Mexico right now. So we moved here in January for a job, and yeah, we're here for 7 months. It's hard to uproot the family. So it's my husband and our 6-year-old son and our 2 dogs. And one of our dear pups was hit by a car last week. So we are we're just kind of coming out of the shock. It was a horrific week. So
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, it's just it's hard to be away from home. Right. Anyway, and then to be away from home during the pandemic where you just can't even really get to know a city.
Yeah.
And then your dog dies in the city, so you hate the city even more. It's just like, yeah, this is going to be a master exercise of just really finding the beauty of this place and making this place end up being like a special place in our heart, because right now it's just really hard to want to be here. And even as good as the work opportunity is, yeah, right now you want the things that make you feel safe in the world.
Yeah, and clothes and
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So thank you. It's just what life looks like right now. So we're just making the best of it.
Yeah. I actually love Albuquerque. One of my best friends.
Do you?
I do, which is hilarious. One of my best friends, who's also an actress, was filming out there for a couple years. So I went to visit. So when you can go out and do more, lots of recommendations for you, I'll throw your way.
Oh,
yeah.
Great.
That'll
and I think it's unfair to meet any city. And I've actually been here before, but I toured to the casinos. So also not a great, it's just, we stayed on the outskirts in shitty hotels, and then we'd go to the res and do a show. And so I know that this city hasn't had the best, it hasn't had my full attention or full investment.
Yeah.
Of let me get to know you. But I do feel like the little things that we're able to do, I think it's just going to be a little bit more of an effort, and curiosity. But this isn't the time of like effort and curiosity. This is the time of like, come on, stay close, huddle close together.
Right. Don't go out.
But I would love, exactly. I would love to meet it in a better time.
Yeah.
Okay. How are you doing? Where are you?
I'm in Toronto. So I was in the States before this all happened as well. So I moved back.
Where were you living?
At the time I was touring with Cirque, so I was in California.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So that happened.
Why do I remember that Cirque was one of the first things to close down?
Yep. We sure were. Within like 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks max, they laid off half of us, furloughed half of us, and then by by May, the words of bankruptcy were floating around, and by June they filed for protection bankruptcy, and it was, yeah.
I remember that. It seems so long ago. Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot, but I was also very happy that I could come back to Toronto and
Yeah.
safe and be around family and have healthcare, and you know, like there was some safety nets that were there that a lot of people don't have. So
yeah. What did you do in Cirque?
I was the assistant artistic director. So I'd gone into production a couple of years. Yeah.
Oh my God. Holy cow.
Yeah. So it was going really well.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then 2020 happened to all of us.
I know, right? It was just like, we just wanted to see what you're really made of.
Yeah.
Just to,
yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see let's shake things
Yeah.
up a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. We were all like really coasting for a little bit there. Yeah. Yeah.
Like, life is good.
There's
This
a
is
collective, there's a collective regrouping and a collective reclaiming of our lives. So it doesn't, as isolating as it does feel, it still feels really connected to certain things. And
because we all going through it together.
all of it, like the
Yeah.
entire planet, right? And
Yeah.
so there's something really beautiful about within that. And I'm often trying to remind myself that
Yeah.
this has happened before. They got through it.
Yeah.
Like my grandmother got through many versions of this, whether that's
Yeah.
from, you know, wartime or, you know, so it's like, this is ours.
Yeah.
This is now like our
Yeah.
thing that we get through, you know, collectively. So yeah, but it's been a journey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so happy you reached out.
Oh,
It's such a nice
yeah,
surprise.
I was like, you know, so a little bit about the project, and then we can
Yeah.
go on to, because I know you're filming and stuff, but so yeah, I just, you know, everybody's writing books and writing scripts and doing plays and blah blah, and I had never really thought about doing a podcast before, but in this time there was so much access to everyone, and I just thought it was really important that with everybody doing a million things and everybody going online, that we understand that it takes a village to become successful, because I feel like the influencer culture and the social media culture of likes and isn't a true reflection of how people not only make it in various industries, but also sustain themselves in the industry. It's really about your connections. It's really about people. It's really about reputation and all of that. And so I was like, I want to talk to people that I love and admire, that have been around in, like, you know, my cipher for years, or that I support from afar or whatever, and get a sense of what village helped you, you know, and how that shaped who you are. Because I just think there needs to be a realistic version of this.
Yeah.
You know, so that's the inspiration for this whole thing. And
Beautiful.
So I'm just trying to get as many stories from as many different perspectives as possible, you know. And I was like, it's like, who do I admire? Who do I like look to? Who am I like stalking from afar, but don't really reach out and say anything? And you're one of those people. And I was like, what has she been up to?
I love it. I'm so happy, and I'm so terrible with so I'm getting better, but it was just every once in a while I see that ding thing, and then I go and I check, and I see, and it's always some like crazy blast from the past. And there's some weird stuff in there too, which is why I don't really like to go there. But every once in a while, it's worthwhile checking the Facebook Messenger.
Well, I'm glad you did, because I'm so thrilled you're doing this, Tamara. I'm thrilled. And I just, you know, I took it. I mean, I think we've been connected on Facebook for, you know, many years, but, you know, we all track each other that way. But I was talking to Arissa, and
oh my God,
I was like, I have to get to Tamara. I was like, do you think she's like, I don't know if she's really on social. I don't, you know, but she's like, check it out, like, see what happens. And I was like, all right, well, you know, I was going to get to you whether it was
awesome.
your sister, or like I was going to get to you
Oh,
because I just
thank
think
you.
your story is incredible, and you've done such meaningful work for your, not just personally as an actor, but also for your community. And so I wanted to hear all about it.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty incredible. You and your sister are
Good.
powerhouses. So I got to get your
All
sister
right.
on
Well,
it.
I'm seeing right now that we froze. So I guess we're just gonna do the best of
We're
oh,
there?
we're on now. We're recording. Was it recording the whole time?
Yes. Yeah, don't worry, that won't.
Okay.
Yeah, it was. So that won't be. Even if we're frozen, we can
Okay.
edit and do the thing.
Okay. Perfect. Okay.
Right.
Yeah, this is the best reception I'd have. So we'll just cross our fingers.
And same with me. It's like it is what it is. If it freezes, just let me
Okay.
know then and we'll
Okay.
pause.
Good.
Right. So,
Okay, cool.
writer, producer, actress, Tamara Podemski, thank you for joining me on Spacemakers podcast. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about your start. So, shout out to Claude Watson School for the Performing Arts, which is where you got your start, I guess, a little bit ago, just a few years ago.
Yeah.
And I wanted to
Yeah.
know what was it? What production like got that acting bug? Like what bit you? Like what was it that that started it all? Do you have a moment that you were like, this is it? Or
Okay, well, first of all, I just want to say I'm so happy to be here. I'm very far away from home right now, so you're making me feel very, yeah, it's just the Toronto, the Claude Watson, all those stuff they just remind me of everything I love and where I come from. And when you're far away from home, those memories really ground me. So thank you for that. So yeah, there's no shout outs that are loud enough to pay to acknowledge what the influence that Claude Watson was. I was in that program for 10 years. It is for sure the reason I am the professional I am. The my work ethic comes from that school.
yeah.
My friends are still all from that school. And I proudly, like I say that I'm from and there's nowhere that I go in the industry, whether it's music industry, theater, film, television, we're everywhere. Graduates from Claude Watson are everywhere.
It
It's
is
yeah.
and this was a spectacular program.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So to answer that question of the show, and this is very much connected to Claude Watson, I think the first musical I was taken to from it was on my 11th, maybe my 10th birthday, was my grandmother and my grandfather took me to Les Miserables. It was like 90, it was like the early 90s. And yeah, changed my life. I mean, I think also when you go to something in your own city, like it was not, I knew about Broadway, I knew about other things. I'd always loved musical theater, but when you take the subway downtown
Mhm.
and it's in your own city. And so for that, I know that the access I had to these things, the exposure that I had, and the grandparents that were so committed to, they were art lovers as well, but they took that time to take us to everything. And it was very much because of my grandmother that she embedded that deep appreciation for art. So that was my birthday present. Went to Les Mis, fell in love. It was amazing. But the next day I went to the bathroom at Mini Claude and it was Cosette. I can't even remember what her name was. Alana. She was in your, not, I don't know if she was in your grade. She might have been a grade.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
She was Cosette. And I was in the bathroom.
That's
I was
right.
like, oh my gosh.
Was she a year older than you? Oh man, younger than
I
us.
don't know if she might have been two. She might have been 2 years younger than me.
So
I
she would
just
have been
know
under. She would have been under me.
yeah. I think
Mm.
her name was Alana something.
I'm gonna have
I
to
was
look
not
that
friends
up.
with her, but
I will look that up.
I was starstruck,
Oh,
but it was a weird starstruck because when you see, and I think the gift of that was that a dream that you think that is so unattainable ends up being right in front of your face, and you see that it is a young girl in the school that you go to and it distorted all of that, like, you know, maybe what you would naturally think of, like, well, that's not possible for me, right? If that's the default mode of any young dreamer,
Right.
it's like, hold on, you were in limit, you were on stage, and maybe that moment was much more responsible for the trajectory that happened after that, of like,
Amazing.
you can do that, well, I can do that.
Yeah, we're in the same classes. We have the same teachers.
Yeah, exactly. You're from Toronto, you live here. So, you know, it's little things like those moments that started to close the distance between crazy dreams of performing on stage.
That's the best story. And now I'm gonna find her and also interview her. Because
Oh my God.
I wonder if she's still in the
I
art.
can't believe I forgot her name. I haven't thought of her, but like that moment I remember, but I don't even know, and I can't even remember how she responded to me. I think I just asked her. I don't even know if I said anything. I don't even know what the exchange was. I know that the playing of the moment lasted for years,
Right.
but like the impact of the moment, but I don't even know if I asked her. I just know that that was Cosette, and she was washing her hands in the sink. So I don't even know if we said anything.
In the blue tiled sink. That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Oh, I love that. Okay, so after that, were you still at Claude when you booked your first professional gig? I guess it was the TV show. What was it called? Oh my God, it's failing me right now.
Ready or Not?
Vogel? Or is it Blavogel?
Oh, Blauvogel, the German one.
Yeah.
Yes, I was. The first thing the first show or the movie I did was called Dance Be Outside. That was Bruce McDonald's film.
Okay.
And that was, I think I was already I was in grade 9. I was at Earl Haig by that point. So yeah, I was a dance major. And again, like not, I was a dance major. I loved theater. I loved performing. I loved musical theater because it allowed you to dance and sing at the same time. But there were the drama majors and there was the dance majors. And so it was actually through, the back of Now magazine, there's all the auditions for dancers. And there was an audition it was like for my age, it was for a music video. But I was like 15 at the time. So my dad took me, and it was in, oh my God, I want to say like the Max Club, or I can't remember but it was one of those like big clubs on Richmond Street.
Right.
What the heck
That had a million names.
Yeah. And it was, and they put me in a cage and I was dancing, and it was kind of inappropriate, like for a fit, even though that's what a lot of us were doing at that time, dancing in the gloves. But it was I just wanted to be a dancer in a music video. But the director of the music video was Bruce McDonald, who, there was just like a little side gig that he was doing, directing the music video. But then he had this other film. And when he found out that, and when he cast me for the music video and explained what would actually be happening in it, which was, I think I was like, we'd be making out in the back of a car. I was like, I don't think that's appropriate for me. And I'm sorry, I don't want to break into the business that way. And I'm sure my dad wouldn't sign off on that. So I said, thank you, but no. And he said, well, there's another film that I'm working on. And it's about, a bunch of kids on the res who, it's based on a story by W.P. Kinsella, and I'd love to tell you about it. But, he was like an older man asking a young actress, I have a film that would be really great for you. Right. And so I was like, no, that ain't right.
I've seen this story. I watched Fame.
So I brought my big sister, Jen. I told her about this guy, and I was like, but he's legitimate. Like, we know that he had done Highway 61 by that point. Like, we knew who he was. So she came to dinner, and she got cast in the lead role, and I got the the supporting role. But it was better that it was meant to be like that. But I always like to say that I'm responsible for her big breakout role in Dance Me Outside. But yeah, basically that was how we got into it, which was amazing. And I think also I think of, when you talk about how we get to where we are and why, and the experience that shaped that journey, to have my first film experience kind of under the wing of my sister in this really protected, I knew that someone had my back. I knew I didn't need parents on set. And it's very different when you're a child actor and your parents are there. This was my sister, my best friend, my mentor. I watched so much of how she, carried herself on set, how she interacted. She was still young herself. She was only 18. But that was probably, the healthiest way I could have been introduced into the film industry.
Really
It was
protected.
also in a company of my fellow Indigenous actors. So my whole introduction was this communal, very kind of, we were all teenagers. So there was just a way that we took care of each other.
Mhm.
And me being the youngest, it was even more, I felt so protected.
That's beautiful. And speaking of being an Indigenous actor, what was it like to be in that space in the 90s? Like, we didn't talk about it. Like, I knew because as children, you talk about where you're from, and I'm Caribbean and you're Indigenous, but you don't really understand the gravity of that. So what was that like in that space, especially your first movie being in your community and then branching out from that?
Well, I
Was there
think
anybody that did you have elders that were helping guide you guys through this process?
well, so I think first of all, it was naively, not that we took it for granted, but now we're 25 years later. You're not seeing, like, that was North of 60 that was on CBC. That was the res that was on. There were more Native people on TV 20 years ago than there are now. So it's a very weird, I feel like we've gone back in so many ways. There's the representation on TV has been reduced, and yet our content creators and the people behind telling the stories, the people who are making the stories happen and putting it, and now the ones who are really the engines behind the stories that we're seeing, and the ones who are changing the way that we're being seen, that's can't compare to what was 20 years ago. So in that way, it's a very different time. Also, the conversation has changed in terms of, the language people use, the awareness. There's things that aren't acceptable now that we were just, you just dealt with. And so I would say that the coming into the business in the 90s was a very exciting time. It was the time when Indians were popular. They were just like, everyone wanted to see both the historical pieces. So this is Dances with Wolves. This is like Thunderheart.
Right.
This is, Graham Greene, Tantu, Sheila Tousey. There was Irene Bedard, Smoke Signals, and then North of 60. And North of 60 wasn't just North of 60 was just turned people into superstars.
Yeah,
and then you just got the TV movies out of that. Like, it was this time where we realized people actually want to watch our stories, because I remember we did 2 seasons of The Res. So The Res was the spin-off from Dance Me Outside. And it was like, it wasn't just for us. This was mainstream television, and our numbers were crazy. Like, we were on the same, we were on the same, people were tuning into our shows as much as they were tuning into, dominant society, popular, white shows.
Right.
So even that, maybe not distorted, but like, I was introduced into the business at a time where I felt very welcome, even if I had to deal with some stuff of like the farthest extreme, like of the German series Blauvogel, where it's the buckskin role, and so you're dealing with some ideas and stereotypes that you just grow a thick skin. I think the difference between back then is not that you didn't make a big deal about it. There was nothing to be won by saying you can't do that. And that could have just been my very young, not owning my voice yet.
Yeah.
Kind of that's as far as I was able to see. I didn't know what the benefit of speaking up was.
Right.
I didn't know you say you can't put mud on me to make us look like dirty Indians. Like, that's a buckskin dress, and the reason we always set up by the lakes was so we could clean ourselves. So it was just like things like, you just look too clean, you just look too pretty. That's why we braided our hair. It just keeps everything out of your face, keeps everything nice and nice.
Right. Yeah.
While we're working, while we're traveling, so it was, even my sis Jen worked on wardrobe of the German series, and it's all just like, all you have is stereotypes. People just had no access to what the real information
Indigenous
was.
life. Yeah. Yeah.
So, and we were just so excited to be able to be included in this industry. And that's really what it felt like. It wasn't until years of then just doing buckskin after buckskin, or like, how many times can I get murdered? I have been murdered more on television, I think, or beaten, or like, I think I went through 15 or 20 years of that before I actually said, no more.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a many, many, many years of being the native role that gets murdered.
Right.
Before I even understood there's got to be another story.
Yeah.
So
did you have mentors in that time that kept you level headed, or just with some sort, with looking at it with another lens or some perspective?
Well, Jenny Lazone also, she won the Award of Excellence for the Actor Awards the other night, and she has been one of my heroes, my mentors. There was herself, Monique Mojica, Michelle St. John. There were and my sister. There were a bunch of there were a bunch of really strong powerhouse women who were I saw working, and who I knew in real life to be like, do not mess with that woman. Like, they were so sure of how they walked in the world, and so I guess I just figured that if I was in shows with them, then it would be, then it's okay. Then this is a safe, this is good, or this is right. So I'm the first to say that I was young, and I was watching. If someone told me it was different, then I would have probably responded in a different way. But I think I was following in the path of women actors, because we weren't yet producing, writing, like that wasn't happening back then. So I was just following in the way of Indigenous women actors who were so professional, whose the main thing was that when they show up on work, because that you are representing now people who aren't even included in a conversation or included in this industry, so that you have to show up as better than, like, more prepared than anyone else, more connected and interested in the people that you're working with, like that we were bringing kind of those values of being good, integrity, being respectful.
Mhm.
And I would say more than this is how I need to be represented, like this is how I want to be seen on TV. It was more about how do you do the work that you do.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I feel like that was the strongest influence that I had from these women. They taught me to be a just a proud um, uh, and confident artist who could walk into a space and deliver.
Right.
And that might not sound like the most radical, like this is how we change the world, but I know that I still show up on set with only trying to do that.
Right.
And that I don't know, maybe it helps me or not get caught up with the other stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I don't know if that answers your question.
No, it did.
It's a
Absolutely.
hard one. There's phases to what this reclamation of our stories and our identity.
Mhm.
There's phases to what that process has been over the last 30 years. And there are times where the most important thing is showing that you're capable. There's this idea that we're just not as experienced. I mean, how can you be as experienced? We don't get that many opportunities to
To experience.
work. Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
so there's so much catching up to do. And for me, I mean, it was this terrible thing that I used to think. I was like, I'm just as good as white actors. Like, I really am. Why can't you? Why can't you ever, like? And so that has been my journey there was a point in my career where I was like, no more native roles, because if I keep doing native roles, they're not going to see that I actually can compete on the same level.
Yep. You can play a mom, you can play the girlfriend,
Exactly.
you can play the
Exactly.
ingenue. Yeah, absolutely.
And
Yeah.
so and I know that I learned to be the actor that I am
Mhm.
predominantly from Indigenous artists. My Indigenous artist community is who taught me how to do my work in this way, how to ground my work in something more important than, how many like TV ratings,
Absolutely. So going back a little bit,
Yeah.
you also have 3 albums, which,
Mm.
to be fair, I did not know about. I was like, wait.
To be fair, 2 of them aren't in my name, so that's okay.
Okay. So talk to me about that journey and who was instrumental in that, because that's a totally different medium, totally different world.
Yeah.
You were younger.
Yeah.
So what was that like, and what was it like from a traditional, because they were traditional albums. So, and
Yeah.
I'm saying this
So
right, Anishinaabe. Did I say that right?
Anishinaabe, yeah. Yeah. So
So
Anishinaabe is
they were in a
the Ojibwe. It's in English, it's Ojibwe. In our language, it's Anishinaabe. And the language is Anishinaabemowin.
mhm,
So basically, I did 2 years of Rent.
right.
And even if I was a, somewhat decent singer before, I was very inexperienced, and my voice was probably in all my kind of skills, singing was the most challenging for me. It just required the most amount of focus. But 2 years on Broadway, that got my voice into
You were
shape.
Marine,
And
correct?
I was more, yeah, I
Mhm.
started off as Mrs. Cohen. I started off as the ensemble,
Yeah.
and then made my way to Maureen. But I came into my voice in that show. And that's when all of a sudden songs that I had been writing just as a teenager just started to have voice,
Mm.
and a little bit more confidence, and a little bit more curiosity of like, what can I do with this? And I came back to Toronto, finished the show, and it was a call out of nowhere that of a band in Los Angeles that was looking for an Indigenous singer who sings in their language. And
Oh,
so the weird thing was that um, Broadway was kind of so intense for me, and took a toll on my body, and but mostly my mind and my heart. And so when I finished the show, I left the business. Like, I needed a full break, and I said no shows, no nothing. Just need to like go into real life.
which is
And
very brave.
I would have, it could have been brave. I think it was like self-preservation.
Wow.
Yeah, it was not a great uh yeah, it was probably one of the biggest reality checks. I also grew up there, right? I think I was there from like 20 to 22. And so I just understood the toll that it all takes. And the other thing is, I had always previously done community work um
Mm,
amidst that always grounded me as to what, and it just stayed, it allowed me to connect to other people. I didn't, for 2 years I didn't get to do any of that. The schedule doesn't allow that, the
mhm,
energy doesn't allow that.
mhm.
So I feel like I really lost touch with it was just performing, and performing to me has to be balanced out with something else.
Yeah.
And even though it feels really good, I think that's what allows, what kind of can allow you to get disconnected from what's really going on. Not only that, you can't see people's faces. It's like, well, in those big shows, it's very impersonal. Even though you
Mhm.
hear them and you see the standing ovation, like when the lights come up, it's really just about the show. And so yeah, I came, and people moving through very quickly.
Yeah.
And
You develop relationships
um
and then they leave and then, you don't see
it
them
was
ever again,
my
or yeah,
my
yeah,
fragile heart
yeah,
was too much. And so came back to Toronto. I actually put myself, I went to University of Toronto. I was like, I just want a world that makes sense. I want a world that if I work really hard, you get you get a reward, or you get, like, there was equations or things made sense. So anyway, in at University of Toronto, I went into Indigenous studies and Hebrew literature, which is my other half. So my dad's Israeli, my mom's Anishinaabe, and so I thought, how perfect! I'll just take both and balance out my identity crisis. And one of the things I took, so I was taking Hebrew, but I was also taking Ojibwe. And my mushum, who was a fluent speaker, so my grandfather was a fluent speaker, my mom's dad, but he didn't teach 7 children the language. So when he came out of residential school and my grandmother came out of residential school, they made a conscious effort. They always spoke with each other, but they made a conscious effort not to teach the children so that they would have a better time assimilating.
yeah. And that was what
Yeah,
a lot of immigrant
yeah,
parents experience, where it's just like, no, we want you to not go through that experience of having
yeah.
to learn a second language and be cast in the ESL block and like all that stuff. So yeah, yeah, and I can never
And
blame them for those choices because they're really trying to protect us.
yeah, and they they my, there was also, if they didn't teach them, there was no other place to access that.
Mm.
So as much anger as I had towards my him or my mother for not seeking that out for herself, you can just be pissed off for so long until you do something about it. So I was like, so you just start from the beginning. So I took an Ojibwe class, and uh, it it just makes sense to me. I relate. I hear the language. I am not fluent by any means, but I did find it's also, I would say, an easier language than some other languages. If, like, in terms of something that's foreign in your mouth,
Mhm.
Ojibwe is the long vowels. There's no actual sound isn't that you can't make if by speaking English as your first language. So that was a very easy thing. Whereas some of the other, you go into some of the Haudenosaunee languages or the Western languages, and it would just be, it's so different from English. So anyway, I fell in love with the language. I took it for a couple of years. So when this call came in of an Indigenous singer to sing in their language, I knew enough to string together some songs. And I also had my mushum, who I would just give him all the songs and say, how does this sound? Like he would just fix the grammar. So it's very
Sorry, can I
basic.
interrupt you? What's a
Yeah.
mushroom?
Oh, grandfather.
Okay. Oh, that's
Yes. So
beautiful.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So actually in Ojibwe, it's Moshemus, Moshemus, but my grandmother was Cree, and for whatever reason, we refer to both of them in their Cree names, which is Mushum and Cookum. I don't know why that happened, but that's just in case there's somebody who's Anishinaabe saying that's not how we say grandfather. So it's actually Cree, but he's Anishinaabe. So anyway, I would just call him with each song when I finished. They were basic songs. They had written all the music, and they just wanted someone to come in with lyrics. And the cool thing about Anishinaabe is it's languages with like where a word and there's just prefixes and suffixes. So you're just constantly adding on to one big word. So you end up with these words that are really, really long, which when you're writing a song, it's actually just this one word per verse almost, because you're saying all these things that are happening. And I found it very not easy, but I found it very natural to write a song in it. So it worked great. Except that I flew down to Los Angeles, had recording my first album, and just before it came out, the label folded. So I think they pressed some CDs.
Yeah. Do you have it?
The best part, yeah, it's on iTunes. It's called Spirit Nation.
Okay, great.
But it never got no, it was a very exciting thing. I thought it was going to come out there would be a CD release. Those were the days that you have a CD release. You'd get some kind of press. You'd get some kind of and it was contemporary music in it was electronica. It was like a contemporary electronica music in Anishinaabe, which was to me like the coolest thing. To me, it was like, especially what was happening at that time in the film industry. We were trying to get out of buckskin, stop seeing us in the past. We are here. We are living in your modern world. We are beside you on the subways. You might not know, but you need to now start to get used to how we look in contemporary world, and just get comfortable with us out of buckskin. So it was a really important moment for me to say no more buckskin. And even when we did the cover photo, it was like this like ethereal, otherworldly. And for me, that was when I started. So it's still pretty young. It was like I was maybe 23 at the time. I was starting to understand this is how you change narratives. You don't ask permission. And that's when I say that thing about showing up on set and where the conversations happen. And I think that over time, because you can have the confrontation. I've never been confrontation. I observe, I watch. Sometimes I'm too silent, and that's I think what the earlier years were. But then I found a way of doing it in a non-confrontational way, where you offer some suggestion of like, well, what if we do this? And they don't even realize that they're now part of changing a narrative,
Absolutely.
So that was really cool. It's just that nothing happened with the album. So
did you ever keep in touch with them after that, or it just sort of fizzled?
No, that was it.
That was it.
I performed the song. The cool thing was that I could do something with the music. And so I opened the National Aboriginal Achievement Awards with one of the songs. And that was what launched my singing career, certainly within the community, like in the Indigenous community in Canada and in the States. And that's when I started touring with a band, because people it wasn't really a normal, not normal, it wasn't really a familiar thing to see pop music in the language.
Right.
So that was pretty radical at the time. And so I just rode with it. It was fun. I put a band together. We toured. I kind of piggybacked it onto my acting career. So if I was doing something on location for something, I would just say, you know, is there a show somewhere? I started doing music workshops, hand drum workshops. I just started incorporating the music, and especially because the music was the one thing that I could control. I was not writing at the time. So I was still an actor who was showing up and speaking other people's words and doing the thing that they wanted me to do. When I found my music, it was like a whole new world. It was like I was responsible for how for what I'm saying and how this is coming across. So that when the second album happened, which is a record label in Toronto, which was like a concept-based album that was also they wanted I was now writing the music at the same time as writing the lyrics.
So
They put me
you
with
could
another
advocate for yourself. And
yeah,
more
it was
agency, yeah.
even greater. I felt like it was even more empowering. This was going to be an even greater chance to show these are not traditional songs. These are contemporary songs in the language. That's it.
Yeah.
If I was to translate them into English, it would be a folk song or it would be a rock song. And so what was very excited about that. And then they came with me to, they came and presented the cover art, and it was a TP, and it was my face in braid, like they superimposed my face onto like a native princess with like braids and buckskin. And I was like, I can't do that. That's what's the teepee? What is this? And they said it's because it's a concept album. We want to show it's the same. It's that same record label that does, you know, like the two wine glasses and it's dinner jazz, and you know, like that's a concept album. You put on the CD and it takes you to the world of like now we're in Native American spirituality. That
and you're like, there's so
and I was
many
like, but
other
these
images
are
that you
not
could use.
these are not traditional songs. They're certainly not ceremonial songs. It has nothing to do with the teepee. And they're not from a long time ago. These are right now current songs. And they say, yeah, but this is this is how people recognize this, right? Just buckskins and teepees. And so yeah, whatever progress I thought had been being made was not the case. Or maybe it was, but it's just the thing is progress is very much specific to circumstances and places, and so one didn't cancel the other, but it just let me know that every single project or people that you meet is a new conversation that you just have to equip yourself with, you know, the right the right approach. And the right approach in this case was I had no rights to I signed everything away.
Right.
So
you learn from that. Yeah.
But what I could do is not let them use my face or my name. And so the second album is under a pseudonym name, and they put someone else's face on the cover. But I was like, that's fine. It just I can't be my face.
Yeah.
And then I took all those songs and I toured them all over the world. So wherever I would go, I would have my hand drum and I would have my band, and we would sing the songs that I wrote. And that's how I balanced that out. And then the third album was me I made my own record label. I said, no, you guys don't get to say anything anymore about how I do this.
Who helped you with the third album? What was it? Do you remember who
helped me? Oh, well, my producer was who helped, Karen Kozowski. I found a producer who saved my life and who kind of just she's now in Nashville. She's another just Toronto superstar who's killing it in Nashville. Yeah, she is a dear friend and sister now, but yeah, at that time where I had to do it my own way, I think I put $25,000 on a visa.
Wow.
Visa helped me that I had to pay off for the next 10 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was no other way to do it. I don't regret any moment of it. It was certainly anyone who and at that time you needed studios. Like it would be a very different thing if we were doing it right now.
Oh yeah,
but that was
at this point.
Yeah. That was like 15 years ago. But that was for me, that was what needed to be done. And I have the music is the only place that I really feel like I've got to do it my own way. Acting is much more difficult, and I only up until a couple of years ago did I did I finally, that same thing that you feel disempowered, what are you gonna do? So now change it. And so it was only a couple of years ago that I started writing so that I could tell the stories in a different way.
Right.
Luckily, a whole bunch of other people started writing at the same time.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
I have an incredible wave of Indigenous writers who are now, changing the stories that we're seeing on television.
Absolutely. And speaking of, your numbers of years in TV, but Four Sheets to the Wind, that was a huge arc moment, right? Like that was that was the shooting star trajectory moment.
Yeah.
What was there someone that was instrumental in opening up that door? Was it people that in your community that you worked with? Like, how did that come about?
Yeah, totally. So I guess the thing is there's it's such a good question, because even with the music, those aren't nice stories of the people around who directed it in a different way. But my mushum, I became a songwriter because of my mushum. So it was never like, and he didn't teach me anything about music business, but it's so interesting how it was the personal connections. It was very rarely do I have a story where you can ask me that question. I'm going to say the person who was in the business who, it was my sister, it was my grandfather, it was these, women I consider my aunties and my mentors, that I knew personally from the community that taught me how to be in the business. And even Karen Kozowski, who was, a local musician, who became a producer for her own purposes because she needed to find out how to get her music out there. And so even with Four Sheets, which was the biggest thing I had done in film, only happened because one night in New York, after coming off stage from Rent, I come to the backstage door and there is this like big, beautiful brown skin man who is like tall above the crowd. It's like I can see all these other people, and then there's just this beautiful Indian man, and his name was Bird Running Water.
Say that again.
He was Bird Running Water.
Bird Running Water. I love
so
it.
Bird was working in New York at the time. Shortly after, we became friends, and he then moved to Sundance, and he runs the Indigenous film office at Sundance. He's been running that for about 20 years.
Oh, beautiful.
So Bird, he is, in my Oscar speech, it'll be about Bird, because his main, he has many talents, but his main kind of purpose is finding all the voices and showing them where to come to tell your stories. And then he's like this. He's like this guy who just has his ear to the ground. He is the connector. He is the guy who knows who is who and what's and what and where and how to help them either find that person, find that mentor, find the funding, find the actors they need for that. He was that. And I don't think there's anyone in the Indigenous film world right now who can. It's 6 degrees of Bird. That's what.
Oh, I love this man.
Bird's like our Ava DuVernay.
Hey, listen, we all need.
So if that, yes,
we all need one.
He is incredible. A champion of Indigenous artists, Indigenous storytellers, and he has such a keen, eye and ear for these voices that, you have to be. First of all, you have to know where to find these voices, and then you have to, because they're far away. They're not in the in the place, and they're not voices that are louder or like know even how to be heard.
Mhm.
So he just, yeah, anyway, I can't say enough about him.
Oh,
But
that's beautiful.
there was a filmmaker, Sterling Harjo, in Oklahoma.
Yes.
He was making his film, and he'd gone through everybody. You know, there's an American, you know, there's
Playbook.
a casting book that you're like, yeah, exactly. And Bird said, you know, you should check out Tamara Podemski. I saw her in Red. She's this Ojibwe chick. She lives up in Canada, but yeah, give her a try. And that was the first call that came in. So it wasn't my agent. I mean, this was not a breakdown that comes out that,
Right.
you know, this was a random call of Bird told me about you. Can you put a tape together? And that's what I did.
And special
And
jury prize for acting at Sundance in 2007
it
happens.
was cuckoo. It was crazy.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So, wow, I love that story. That's just incredible.
I can't say, I don't think there's any normal story that I have. It is always about the personal connection. And I think when I say that thing about what did I learn from these people, it's how to show up and be a good person. And the crazy thing is, I would say that my career, and there have been some dark phases, like, or even just some, like, let's call them very long hiatuses.
Yes. Yes.
But they're the tools of just being a good human being was probably my greatest currency, because that allowed me to make friends.
Yeah.
That allowed me to bond and connect and um and 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 just not feel so alone.
Mm.
And more jobs have come from those connections than from any I got spotted in a cafe, somebody came
Or
up to me.
my video went viral, or yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. I love those stories. Those stories are
They're
great.
great.
It's never been my story.
And I think that those stories are like 5% of our industry.
Yeah.
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 So what draws you back to theater? The Edward Curtis Project, how we got there, how we got here. What draws you back? Because you took a hike.
Probably because that's where I started. So in Toronto, you know, we have Native Earth Performing Arts, and those were my first theater jobs. Other, you know, probably when I was at the same time, Dance Me Outside. That's where I met all these women who ended up being in the TV shows. But I met every one of my heroes of, you know, the Janny Lazon, Monique Mahika, Michelle St. John. I met them in theater. They are, and anyone in Toronto who knows theater, they know these women, because they've just been both as writers, as producers, as performers.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was probably where I learned to be a storyteller, for sure. So for me, it's just the most comfortable, humbling, and it's like it's like the learning environment. You learn on set for sure. It's just too quick. It's too quick to have, like, the process actually allows you to filter it all through. And I feel like rehearsal process, what happens to me in rehearsal process is transformative, and it gets to seep into my body, because it's like a slow, you know, it's like the slow seep, and which is not the same as film and television. So I find that to support my healthy and maybe slower um, let's just say healthy relationship, to support my healthy relationship with my body and myself as a performer, theater is the best place for me to do that. And I say that only in terms of Indigenous theater. I don't have much experience in the other commercial, and when I had done the other commercial, it's taken quite a toll on me. So the way that we create a space in Native theater, of the rehearsal process, of the dynamics with each other, and of the stories that we tell, and how we support ourselves in some of those very traumatic stories, the way we support our body, our mind, our spirit, and the relationships. It's like a reset. I always get to reset. It doesn't mean it's like happy, joy. It's very rarely that, but it's a place where I get to sort out a lot of shit.
Lovely.
Yeah.
So now you've got a writer, story producer. Talk to me about the documentary series Future History, and you get to do this with your sister again. So shout out to Jennifer. And
yeah,
CBC and CBC embraced you guys. So that's pivotal in a lot of ways.
Yeah. So CBC took I think they bought our first season, and it's on CBC Gem. I think they might have bought our second season, but it was really APTN that was the main network for us to do season 1 and season 2. Future History was a Jen. So Jen was going to write it, but she's a union. She's in the Writers Guild, so she couldn't write it, and so she had to find a writer who was not union. So this is, like I tell you, it's not the he saw me in the cafe and said, I want you to star in my film. No, this is my sister who's like, shit, I can't write this. I need a native writer who's not in the union, who I can pay really cheap, and who knows what I want to say. And it just worked out perfectly. I had been living in England for a few years with my husband, and we started our family there, and we were in the throes of in the aftermath of losing our second son. So we had a horrific ordeal at loss at the hospital, and with a full inquiry and a full lawsuit that followed. And I was just in hiding. I was in healing, but I just needed to tap out of everything. And we moved to Barrie, and we kind of sheltered, and we took care of ourselves. And we knew that if we didn't take care of ourselves now, if we didn't plant the pain in a good way and give ourselves what we needed, then we were going to screw the rest of our lives up. And so it was this time of just rooting and a lot of self-care and therapy, and out of that, my sister came with this, and she's like, you could do it at your home. You don't have to leave the house. You don't have to see anyone. You don't have to. It was like a job that would allow me to just kind of creep back, like tip my toe in, not fully engage with the world again, which I was not ready to do, but I could at least start to wake up those parts of me again. So it was the perfect time for me to discover a new part of me in a safe way, and allow me to connect with the world, because we were in lockdown. So it's so crazy, because the pandemic, like there was, in all the things that we've had to do here, we're like, we know this, we got shut down, isolation, just self-preservation. So Future History required me to find, so we featured 3 kind of, we were calling them rematriation warriors, people who are reclaiming the Indigenous narrative, people who were challenging these colonial concepts of who we are here in Canada. So we were only looking at kind of, very locally Ontario, and I think we went into Quebec, but we would, it was like a road documentary, where they would go and they would find someone who was working in, the past. So this museum, this preservation of culture, and this kind of containment, and how they were dismantling that and bringing it into the future. And then people who were also these, just change makers, and that were part of this massive political movement and this activism that was happening, post Standing Rock. There's just this,
Right.
it was a really, all these people were coming out, these incredible voices. But the cool thing is that it's all my community. They're all people that I knew. It's not a thing you can pitch to a writer it's totally out of doesn't know
Context.
this world.
Yeah, they need the
So these are
context.
people that I'm literally like just calling on the phone. Not that I was friends with all of them, but I knew who we wanted to speak to. I knew who was. We're not looking for the people who CBC likes to, who do the 1 hour biographies. We wanted the grassroots. That was the most important thing. We wanted to feature these people that were changing the game, and sometimes so radically, and then other times maybe you didn't even notice who was behind this big movement, and then you go back, and you see like, oh, that's who you are. Like the people were so inspiring at a time in my life where like hope and faith were just were it was the perfect job that almost made me like dig into the research more. So even if I thought I knew who would be great for that, no, go more, go deeper, go what else. And so for me, sometimes I would hang up the phone, I would be weeping for either because the stories were so inspirational, so heartbreaking, but all of them were these champions, were these like superhero status. And then you realize it's not a superhero. That's just a person. That's just a person who knows how to make this situation, how to turn it on its head and pull it by the freaking, I don't know, reins, horns, whatever it is. And like, and yeah, it was, season 1, we figured it out. I'd say that was like our first pass at how we wanted to tell the story. And still it was the first time for all of us to do a documentary series like that. But season 2, when we got renewed and we got another chance to now shape the story and focus not just on the people who we were featuring. So we have these 3 profiles we do each episode, but how can we then take our 2 hosts and give them a really rich personal journey? And that's where I feel like I grew up as a writer a little bit more. Writing a documentary series, writing a documentary series, you're not writing script, you're writing scenarios, environment, you're shaping the tone of things. You're putting people, I'm finding all the people. So there's that, but the next element, which I think is why season 2 was recognized, and Jen won Best Director for the series. I was nominated for Best Screenwriter. That happened in season 2 because we understood more, and that's what I feel so strongly about, of what the Indigenous voices in the industry can only happen from experience, from being given the opportunity to write, to show up on set and deliver. For us to be able to be on that level, it's and we're years behind other people who've had that opportunity to do it regularly. So, and the proof is, you get renewed for a second season, and that's the one and all of a sudden, okay, yeah, you can write now. Okay, well, that was Jen's first time directing also. So, so we can't get to those moments unless we're given the opportunity.
The process. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I know I wasn't as good as a writer in season 1. Like you can't be. You just you need practice. And and again, making the show only happened, and I only did it because it was Jen's show. I think what happened after losing our son, it just redirected the work that I want to do. When you talk about, the village that helps me to do my work, post trauma for me was a very conscious decision that I have to work with people I know. My mental health is more important than anything. Forget about the job. I'm a mom. I have a husband. I'm a daughter. I'm a sister. Like there are too many things that are on the line if I can't be well. And no job is worth risking that. So I can consciously say, and coroner is very much my post-trauma. That was my first work opportunity. And that only happened because of what those women created and the space that they created. And they knew right off the bat, like my character was pregnant. I mean, the way that they supported me in that conversation, when we came back to season 2, they're like, do you want to still be pregnant? Do you want to birth? Do you want to? And I was like, you were asking me questions as an actor that no one ever would ever ask.
Who were these wonderful women?
These are Adrian Mitchell and Morwen Brebner, the producers of Coroner.
Amazing.
And when I said, you know what, I don't think I could give birth.
The fact that they were women, right? Because they know to ask those questions. So there's also that space, having women in that space with you. So there's a thought process that goes, just wouldn't happen, otherwise.
No.
I mean, I say that loosely because yes, of course, there are male producers that are more sensitive and more aware, but you're going to get that from female producers.
Oh yeah, no, that was very, and could also, and even it's not a guarantee just because they're women that they're going to say, you putting on a pregnant belly, yeah, exactly, messes with your head. So how can we make this a more, how can we tell this story in a trauma-informed way to protect you so that you can do your work and show up and this isn't a triggering experience. So I really feel that even more than ever, every job goes through the filter of who is the village that makes this possible. And even right now on this show, which is a big Amazon show, I've certainly never been on a show this of this level before. I know the producer, Heather Ray, who is from that same world of Four Sheets to the Wind. Her film Trudel was there 2 years earlier. She is from that Bird Running Water, Taika Waititi, that 20 years ago, these Indigenous producers and filmmakers who were creating space for our voices. And to know that Heather is here and she is like my mama bear, and it's an Indigenous role that I'm playing. And that's how it has to go for me. And if it means I do less work, that's fine with me. I need to do work that I know that people got my back.
Quality, not quantity. Oh my God, this has been so amazing. So do you have, and I'm gonna guess that it might be Jennifer or Bird, but do you have an ultimate spacemaker in your life, like someone that has been there every step of the way?
Oh, well, for sure, that's Jen. Yeah, that's my sister.
All right, rapid fire questions for you. What's your best bad decision? So that you're like, no, I shouldn't do it, and you did it anyway, and then it turned out like you're like, this is the worst decision, but it turns out to be the best thing you've ever done.
Oh my gosh. Bad decision. Well, okay. So after Four Sheets, I won the award, and Hollywood called. We're like, who's this new girl on the scene? I moved to Los Angeles. I was like out of a divorce. I didn't have kids. There was nothing to lose, but it was reactive, slightly reactive. Moved everything there. And about a week later after I arrived, the writer's strike happened. And there was no work for 7 months. And everything. It was like the highest high and then complete blackout and defeat and failure. I mean, everything that could have happened to make it the worst decision, to have put all my eggs in one basket like that. And I didn't go home. And so what I instead did was I just found a different way to be down there. And I lived there for 4 years, not as an actor. And I found Krav Maga, which was this martial arts that I had been doing previously in my life. And I found another way to identify. And I think that was one of the survival tools that came out of that decision that bombed, what like made me the fighter and the survivor I am. I mean, many things have helped that, or have
impacted that,
supported me to exactly. But no, what happened from that decision was for sure like life changing, and who I became out of that. And I do remember, don't go home. Like I remember, this is bad. This is really, really, it's really bad. I was catering. Oh my God, I was catering at the Oscars. Like it couldn't have been more in my face. You are a failure. The best you're gonna do is cater at the Oscars. Good for you. Good for you. That's why you came. I mean, and so many actors. I mean, I was only catering with actors.
Oh, absolutely.
So to get through, I mean, but that's the gift of humility. Nothing kind of builds you if you choose to build up after that.
Okay, so do you have a tough love mentor like Simon Cowell, Gordon Ramsay, Anna Wintour? Do you have that? Did you ever experience a person like that, or have that person?
I would say in fighting. So I fought pretty hard for 4 years at and taught at the Krav Maga headquarters in Los Angeles. Their voices are who I hear through my head. So that would be Jarrett. Oh my God, what's Jarrett's last name? I can't say that then. I just haven't forgotten his name. I never called him by his last name.
We'll find it. We'll find him.
I want to say Jarrett Waldman. So Jarrett Waldman, Marcus Koval, and they're two voices, and then probably my coach in Toronto, Rob Ferreira. And it's interesting, but they're not from artists. I never had a tough love. It was a much more different voice that came from my artist mentors. But my fighting, my martial arts, their voices, they're who pull me up. I'd say my husband's also pretty he probably, because he knows the same voice he has to use for himself. Of how to not give in to the weight of it all.
Got it. And my last question, although I could talk to you for like 3 hours, who are you making space for now?
Well, I'd like to think that I am, obviously there's a whole new generation of Indigenous actors who have reached out to me. I've taught workshops for the last 20 years all over Turtle Island, all over North America, that I get to witness the power of bringing, or the power of the magic of bringing the outside experiences to people who might not have had access to that before. And when I talked about that initial thing of seeing Alana, I think in the bathroom after Les Miserables, I got the gift early on to see that dream wasn't as far away as I thought it was. And I think for youth who are in really rural communities, or who don't have access to opportunity, some of those dreams are so far away. And that is why the community work is so important for me, because I feel like part of creating space is showing that it's not this, it's this, and that you're in this space already, that it's not a space you have to get to or travel to. It's a space that you are a part of. And even just that mental rejigging, I think, I would like to think that that's what I'm offering when I go, and that that they're a part of it already, and now just step in, and here are all the ways you can step in.
That's amazing, Tamara. This has been like so beautiful and lovely, and thank you for your time, and
thank you for reaching out. It's so good to see you. Did we talk about our matching sweaters yet?
No, but I think, power pink, that whole movement. I think we were just in that feminine space. I'm okay with it.
I love it. Thank you
You're
for giving me a reason to wear pink. Oh, you are so beautiful. Thank you so much. It is so good to see you again.
And good luck in Albuquerque. And I will get in touch with a whole list of stuff for you to do.
Oh, please do.
I adore you.
Okay. Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.